Have you ever wondered how far you would go to save someone you love? Today, I'm going to tell you the incredible true story of a young woman whose courageous choice led her into the den of a dangerous mafia boss for 30 nights. It's a tale of sacrifice, power, and an unexpected love that changed 2 lives forever. Chiara Lombardi, a principled and independent young woman, raced through slick cobblestone alleys toward her family's little trattoria. Moments earlier, she'd received a panicked phone call from her father, Johnny, who had managed to gasp, "They're coming," before the line went dead. Chiara knew who they were, the shadows that lurked behind her father's recent troubles, and she was determined to protect the only family she had, no matter the cost. When Chiara burst through the trattoria's kitchen door, her blood ran cold at the scene inside. 2 large men in dark tailored suits had Gianni pinned against a shelf of tomato sauce jars. One goon's fist was twisted in her father's collar, while the other man methodically swept jars off the shelf, sending them shattering to the floor. The rich scent of tomatoes and garlic mingled with the acrid smell of fear. "Please," Johnny choked out, hands raised in supplication. "I just need a few more days." "You've been saying that for weeks," growled the heavy-set thug holding him. "Signor Romano doesn't like waiting." The mere mention of that name, Dante Romano, made Chiara's heart stutter. Dante Romano was a name spoken in hushed, fearful tones in Rome's underworld. He was rumored to be a powerful mafia boss, a man as ruthless as he was rich, known for controlling half the city's illicit trades. Gianni's debt, a sum that had ballooned with brutal interest, belonged to Dante Romano, and now his men had come to collect. Chiara's fear crystallized into resolve. She stepped forward, voice shaking, but loud enough to be heard over the pounding of her heart. "Let him go." Rainwater from her hair dripped onto the floor as she placed herself between the thugs and her father. Though only 24 and a head shorter than the men, she lifted her chin with defiance. No one would hurt her father while she still breathed. One thug sneered, taking in Chiara's slim, rain-drenched form. "Stay out of this, ragazza. This is between your father and Signor Romano." "My father's debt is with your boss, not you," Chiara shot back, her brown eyes flashing. "Take us to him, then. We'll settle this with Dante Romano directly." She prayed her voice didn't betray the terror twisting in her stomach. In truth, the idea of facing Dante was terrifying. But they had no money, no leverage. All she had was her wits and courage, and she would use both to save Gianni. The goons exchanged surprised glances. It was not every day someone requested an audience with their infamous boss. After a tense beat, the one gripping Gianni shrugged. "Your funeral," he muttered. He released her father with a rough shove. Gianni staggered, and Chiara quickly moved to support him, squeezing his arm in reassurance. He looked at her with pleading, anguished eyes, but she gave a small nod. "This is our only chance," her gaze said. Within minutes, Chiara and Gianni were bundled into a black sedan idling at the curb. The downpour had eased to a mist, casting halos around the streetlights. As the car sped off through the wet Roman streets, Chiara silently took her father's hand. She felt him trembling. Johnny was a proud man who had raised her alone after her mother's passing, instilling in Chiara a fierce sense of loyalty and right. He had only borrowed money from dangerous men to pay for her mother's medical bills, and later to keep the trattoria afloat. It was cruel irony that an act of love, trying to save his family, had led them into the grip of Rome's underworld. "Cara mia, I'm sorry," Johnny whispered, voice cracking with shame. Tears glistened in his eyes. "I never meant for you to get involved." Chiara swallowed the lump in her throat and forced a small, brave smile. "We'll get through this, Papa. Together." In truth, fear skittered through her veins. But beneath that fear, a fierce resolve burned. She would do whatever was necessary to secure her father's safety. At last, they pulled up to an imposing villa on the outskirts of the city. An opulent mansion sequestered behind wrought iron gates and tall cypress trees. The gates swung open silently to admit them, and the car rolled down a long drive lined with glowing lampposts. Despite the late hour, the estate was awake with activity. Armed guards patrolled the grounds, and lights shone from several windows. Chiara stepped out into the cool night, helping her father out as well, and the two were swiftly flanked by the suited brutes. The grand double doors opened, revealing a marble-floored foyer and a stern-looking man in a crisp gray suit. He was slim and poised, perhaps an assistant. Signor Romano will see you now, the man said coolly, as if such late-night visits were routine. Father and daughter were led inside through marble corridors filled with art and mirrors. In another moment, Chiara might have admired the luxury, but now every step set her nerves more on edge. Finally, they reached a set of mahogany doors. The assistant pushed them open, and Chiara felt her father stiffen beside her. They entered an elegant study. A crystal chandelier cast golden light across shelves of leather-bound books and a massive wooden desk. And in front of that desk, casually seated in a leather armchair like a king on a throne, was the man himself, Dante Romano. Chiara's first impression was that Dante was younger than expected, perhaps mid-30s, but every bit as imposing as the legends. He rose smoothly to his feet. Tall and broad-shouldered in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, Dante carried himself with a commanding confidence that dominated the room. His jet-black hair was swept back neatly, a few strands falling artfully across his forehead, and a dark silk tie lay against a crisp white shirt. But it was his face that truly held Chiara's attention. Strikingly handsome, with strong masculine features, high cheekbones, a Roman nose, a squared jaw shadowed by stubble. Most unsettling were his eyes, a cold, piercing gray, like chips of ice or flints of steel. Those eyes fixed on her now, revealing nothing, and Chiara felt a jolt of fear despite her resolve. Dante's lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. "Gianni Lombardi," he greeted, his voice low and smooth as velvet. He nodded once, then his gaze slid to Chiara. An eyebrow arched ever so slightly. "And this must be your daughter." Chiara's spine straightened at his tone. Calm, almost conversational, with a hint of curiosity. Up close, Dante's presence was overwhelming. The air itself felt thinner in his orbit. Chiara realized she'd been holding her breath and inhaled at last, catching a subtle whiff of his cologne, smoky cedar and spice. It was both alluring and intimidating, much like the man himself. Gianni moved protectively in front of Chiara, as if he could shield her from Dante's gaze. "Signor Romano?" Her father began hoarsely, bowing his head. "Please forgive our intrusion." I will get your money, I just need a little more time. If you hurt me, you'll get nothing. I beg you, show mercy for my daughter's sake." Dante held up a hand, and Gianni's voice faltered into silence. In the hush that followed, only the distant patter of rain on the window panes and the crackle of a low fire in the hearth could be heard. Dante slowly stepped around his desk, each movement controlled and deliberate, like a predator circling. He came to a stop a few paces from them, hands tucked casually in his trouser pockets. "You came to me," he said softly. Though his words were quiet, authority laced every syllable. "Bold, considering you owe me 200,000 euros. He stated the amount as if discussing the weather, but Chiara saw her father flinch. Dante's steely eyes flicked over Gianni, then to her. Deadlines passed. My patience wore thin. Why should I believe anything will change if I extend mercy yet again? Chiara's heart was pounding. She knew Dante was right. Gianni had no means to repay him, certainly not quickly. They were cornered. Think, Chiara, they needed something to offer, something Dante wanted more than retribution or money. And at that thought, an idea, reckless and desperate, sparked in her mind. She gently stepped out from behind her father's shoulder, drawing Dante's attention fully to herself. Chiara willed her knees not to tremble as she mustered her voice. "Signor Romano, my father is only guilty of trying to keep our family business alive. Hurting him won't get you your money, but..." She took a shaky breath. "If you give him a pass, forgive his debt, I will repay you in a different way." A tense silence fell. Gianni turned to his daughter in alarm, clearly having no idea what she meant to propose. Dante's expression remained impassive, but Chiara sensed a keen interest behind those cool gray eyes. He tilted his head slightly. "Go on." Chiara's pulse throbbed in her ears. This was it, the only bargain she had. "Take me instead." The words tumbled out in a rush before fear could steal them. "I'll stay with you, serve you. Whatever it takes, for as long as you deem necessary, until my father's debt is forgiven." Gianni gasped, horror dawning on his face. "No, Chiara, no." She gently put a hand back to touch her father's arm, never breaking Dante's gaze. "Papa, it's all right," she murmured, even as tears stung her own eyes. Turning back to Dante, she continued resolutely. My life in exchange for his debt. That's my offer. The crackling fire punctuated her brave declaration. Dante Romano's eyes narrowed, assessing her from head to toe. Standing there in her rain-soaked dress and sensible flats, Chiara knew she must appear pitifully out of place in his lavish home. Yet she held her chin high. I have nothing else of value except myself, she thought. If he refuses, then we're truly lost. Dante's face remained inscrutable, a perfect mask. He moved closer, slowly circling Chiara as if appraising a piece of merchandise. Gianni bristled and started to protest, voice quavering with desperation. But Dante silenced him with a sharp look. Quiet. The command was soft, yet carried an unmistakable threat. Chiara could feel Dante's presence at her back now. She fought the urge to shrink away as he leaned in, his breath warm against her damp hair. You would give yourself to a mafia boss? He asked quietly. There was something new in his tone, not quite disbelief, perhaps a touch of dark amusement. Chiara swallowed hard. Yes, I value my father's life more than my own freedom. Her voice trembled, but the conviction in it was real. Slowly, Dante came back around to face her. He was so close she could see subtle details now. A faint scar along his jawline, the stormy striations of gray in his irises. You're either very brave, he murmured, or very foolish, Signorina Lombardi. Perhaps both, Chiara replied, her heart hammering. She dared to meet his gaze head-on. But my family means everything to me. I'll do whatever it takes. Dante regarded her for a long moment, the silence stretching taut. Finally, he nodded once, a decision made. Very well. I accept your deal, Chiara. He spoke her name slowly, almost delicately. Your father's debt is forgiven. Gianni sagged in relief, but Dante wasn't finished. He held up one finger. On one condition. His voice hardened. You will belong to me for 30 nights. During that time, you will remain in my home and under my protection. A shadow of a smirk touched his lips at that word. You will accompany me in the evenings and obey my rules. In exchange, your father walks free and owes me nothing. 30 nights. Not a day less. Chiara's stomach nodded at the bold terms. 30 nights at Dante Romano's mercy. She could only imagine what that implied. But if it kept her father safe, she would endure it. She straightened her shoulders and answered, I agree. No, Gianni burst out, his face ashen. He clutched Chiara's arm. I won't allow this. Take me instead, Dante. Please, not my daughter. Dante's expression flickered with annoyance. He snapped his fingers, and the two suited goons were instantly at Gianni's sides. Escort Mr. Lombardi home, Dante instructed coldly. He is not to be harmed or bothered henceforth, as long as his daughter fulfills our arrangement. The thugs nodded. They began to pull Gianni toward the door. Chiara grasped her father's hand tightly one last time. He was crying now, shaking his head in guilt and despair. Chiara, my brave girl. I'm so sorry, he sobbed. She squeezed his work-roughened hand, forcing a smile to reassure him. Live well, Papa. Please. That will make it worth it for me. Her voice was gentle but firm. I'll be all right. I promise. She dared not let him see her own fear. Gianni was let out, casting helpless, tormented looks over his shoulder until the doors closed behind him. Suddenly, Chiara was alone in the lion's den, a lone lamb facing the wolf who now technically owned her for the next 30 nights. The study felt very quiet and very large. Chiara realized she was trembling. Dante approached, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor, and stopped an arm's length from her. Without her father there to put on a brave show for, the reality of what she'd done crashed down. Her eyes burned with tears she fought to suppress. You have a big heart, Chiara, Dante said softly, tilting his head as he studied her. It's both admirable and dangerous. Chiara's chest constricted. She bit her lip hard, determined not to cry in front of him. She had to stay strong. Our deal is struck. I'll honor it, she managed, voice barely above a whisper. Just please keep your word. Leave my father alone. Dante's gray eyes bore into hers. I'm a man of my word, he replied, and she heard a thread of iron beneath the silk. He lifted a hand toward her face, and Chiara forced herself not to flinch. Gently, Dante pinched a wet lock of her auburn hair between his fingers, then tucked it behind her ear in an almost intimate gesture. 30 nights, he murmured. For 30 nights you are mine, body and will. If you attempt to run or break our agreement, even once, the deal is off, and your father's life is forfeit. Do you understand? Chiara shivered at the quiet menace in his tone. I understand. He let his hand fall from her hair. Good. A beat passed, and his lips quirked in a faint smirk. You're shaking. Chiara hadn't realized it was so obvious. She wrapped her arms around herself, the adrenaline ebbing and chill setting in. It's been a long night. Dante regarded her for a moment, then shrugged off his suit jacket. To her surprise, he draped the expensive coat over her shoulders. It was warm, carrying his subtle scent. Come, you're soaked and shivering, he said, a touch less harshly. I'll have a room prepared for you. He placed a firm hand at the small of her back and guided her out of the study. Chiara tensed at his touch, but allowed herself to be steered into the hallway. They ascended a grand staircase to the second floor, Dante's hand never leaving her back. The heat of his palm through her damp blouse was a constant reminder of how thoroughly her life now rested in this man's hands. Dante led her into a spacious bedroom suite. The door swung open to reveal a space more lavish than any hotel Chiara had ever seen. A stately king-size canopy bed with cream and gold bedding, heavy drapes at the windows, and a sitting area with plush chairs. French doors likely led to a balcony beyond, but at the moment only darkness pressed against them from outside. The room carried a faint fragrance of vanilla and rose. Chiara glanced around, heart fluttering. Is this your room? She asked cautiously. Dante's eyes were on her as he closed the door behind them. It is. He strolled further in and loosened the first buttons of his shirt with an exhale. For the next 30 nights it will be our room. You'll sleep here. With me. Chiara's breath caught. Sleep in the same bed as him, tonight? She had expected he might confine her to a guest room or servants' quarters, at least initially. Sharing a bed on the very first night had not crossed her mind. Heat rose to her face. She opened her mouth, unsure what she was even going to say. Protest, or simply express her anxious confusion. Dante noticed her discomposure. A shadow of a smile ghosted across his lips. Relax. I'm not going to force myself on you tonight, if that's what you're worried about. He tossed his suit jacket over a chair. You've had a shock. I can show a modicum of patience. Chiara blinked, equal parts relieved and wary. Thank you, she said quietly. His eyes flicked to her soaked clothes, then to an armoire across the room. Dante walked over and pulled out a neatly folded white dress shirt. He handed it to her. You can change into this. It'll be more comfortable than those wet things. She accepted the shirt hesitantly. It was far too large and clearly his, but dry and clean. Where? He nodded toward a door on the left. Bathroom's through there. Take your time. As she turned to go, he added in a softer tone. And Chiara, I meant what I said. You're safe here. I won't touch you unless you want me to. Chiara paused, stunned by the unexpected gentleness in his voice. His earlier threat still echoed in her ears. Yet now Dante almost seemed to be reassuring her. It made her head spin. Unable to think of a reply, she simply slipped into the bathroom and shut the door. Inside, she allowed herself a few shaky breaths and a few tears to fall, unseen by her captor. She changed out of her damp clothes and hung them on a towel rack, then pulled on Dante's crisp white shirt. It hung off her petite frame, the sleeves and hem comically long. But the cotton was warm and carried the faint scent of him. Chiara caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. A young woman in a Mafia Boss's shirt, eyes red from crying, face pale with exhaustion and shock. What have I gotten myself into? She wondered. But she squared her shoulders. I did what I had to do for Papa. No regrets. Steeling her nerves, Chiara stepped back into the bedroom. Dante was waiting by the bed, scrolling through something on his phone. He had removed his vest and tie. The top couple of buttons of his shirt were undone, exposing the strong column of his throat and a glimpse of a toned chest. At the sound of her, he looked up and went still. Chiara realized he was staring at her in his shirt. The hem skimmed mid-thigh on her, revealing her bare legs, and she had rolled the sleeves up to free her hands. An unreadable expression flickered over Dante's face, his gray eyes darkening as they swept over her. Chiara flushed under his gaze, tugging the hem of the shirt down awkwardly. That suits you, Dante remarked at last, breaking the silence. His voice had gone huskier. Chiara managed a self-conscious laugh. "It's a bit big on me." He stepped closer, one corner of his mouth curving. "All the better. You look like a girl playing dress-up in her man's clothes." Gently, Dante reached toward her. Chiara held her breath as his fingers brushed her neck, and then realized he was carefully plucking out a bobby pin still caught in her damp hair. He removed a second pin, and her long auburn waves tumbled free past her shoulders. Dante murmured something in Italian under his breath, too low for her to catch. Chiara's pulse quickened at his nearness, and the unexpected intimacy of him loosening her hair. When he finished, he let his knuckles trail lightly from her temple, down along a lock of hair, to her shoulder. "Much better," he said softly, almost to himself. Chiara's heart thumped so loudly she feared he could hear it. This close, she could see a thin ring of dark steel around his irises, could feel the heat radiating off his body. His hand lingered near her shoulder as his eyes met hers. There was something intense there, something that made her simultaneously want to shrink back and step closer. In a flash, Chiara realized this dangerous game Dante was playing, testing her boundaries, savoring her discomfort. Well, she would not be a timid little rabbit. Lifting her chin, she asked, "What now? Are you going to lock the door and stand guard all night?" Dante blinked, then gave a short laugh. "No, Bella. That won't be necessary." He glanced toward the door, considering. "I'll lock it, but only for my peace of mind. I do trust that you care for your father enough not to run. However, I've been burned by broken promises before." He strode to the door, turned the key in the lock with a firm click, and pocketed it. Chiara nodded. Fair enough. He had no reason to trust her yet. She worried her lower lip, unable to shake the tension coiled in her belly. Was he expecting her to share the bed right now? To do intimate things? He had said he wouldn't force her tonight, but she barely knew this man, and fear still fluttered in her like a trapped bird. Sensing her anxiety, Dante approached and unexpectedly lifted the duvet on the right side of the bed. "Get in, sleep," he instructed gently. "We'll talk more in the morning." Chiara hesitated only a moment, before crawling onto the bed and sliding beneath the plush covers. The mattress was heavenly and the bedding soft. Under different circumstances, she might have sighed in delight. She watched as Dante rounded the bed to the other side, his movements unhurried. With his back turned to her, he unbuttoned his shirt cuffs and began to strip off his shirt. "Turn around," he said, glancing at her over his shoulder. Chiara realized she'd been staring at the flecks of muscle in his broad back and quickly averted her eyes, rolling onto her side away from him. She heard the rustle of clothing as he undressed. Heat crept up her neck despite her fatigue. She had never been in such a situation, lying in a crime lord's bed while he changed just feet away. After a minute, the mattress dipped as Dante climbed in beside her. Chiara lay rigidly on her side, facing away and clutching the duvet to her chest. The lamp clicked off, plunging the room into darkness save for a faint silver glow sneaking through the curtains. For a long moment, Chiara stared into the dark, listening to Dante settle. She could feel his presence at her back, though he kept a polite distance. Was he already asleep? Her mind whirled with the events of the day, the threats, the bargain sealed, the fact that she was now lying in the enemy's bed. Silent tears pricked her eyes in the darkness, but she blinked them away. "I have to be strong," she told herself. "At least Papa is safe now. I can endure 30 nights. I can." After several minutes, Chiara's breathing began to slow, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Just as she was drifting off, she felt the mattress shift, and then a warm, heavy arm draped over her waist. Her eyes flew open, body tensing. Dante had moved closer behind her, in his sleep or otherwise, and slung an arm around her middle, drawing her back against his solid chest. Chiara's pulse skyrocketed. She lay still as a statue, unsure if he was even awake. Dante murmured something unintelligible and nuzzled half-consciously into her hair. The heat of his bare skin against her thinly covered back was an entirely new sensation that made her cheeks burn. Part of her alarmed, another part not altogether upset at the unexpected comfort it offered. "Dante?" she whispered uncertainly. He gave a quiet grunt of acknowledgement, clearly not fully awake. Instead of letting her go, he pulled her a touch closer. Dormi, Bella," he muttered in a sleep-roughened voice. "Sleep, beautiful." Chiara's heart did a strange little flip. She should push him away. she told herself. But his embrace was strong and oddly reassuring. And in the dark, after all the fear and adrenaline, she found she didn't really want to push him away. So she closed her eyes and let herself be held, lulled by his steady warmth and the surprising safety she felt in it. Over the following days, Chiara adapted to life in Dante's world. True to his word, he treated her well and never pushed her beyond what she could handle. Each night she slept in his grand bed and often woke nestled beside him. By day, he kept her close, bringing her along to private dinners, evening drives through Rome, and quiet moments at the villa. With every shared meal and conversation, fear slowly gave way to trust, and a fragile affection grew between them. Dante's guarded coldness softened bit by bit, and Chiara found herself seeing not just a ruthless mafia boss, but a complicated man capable of tenderness. Both of them were changing in ways neither expected, drawn inexorably to one another. One warm evening around the 20th night of their bargain, Dante and Chiara's simmering tension finally boiled over. A playful after-dinner banter gave way to a sudden, tender kiss, Dante's mouth claiming hers in the heat of the moment. That single spark ignited all the unspoken desire between them. In a haze of passion, he guided her gently to his bed, and she did not resist. They made love slowly and fervently, shedding all remaining walls. In Dante's protective embrace and Chiara's warm surrender, they found comfort and need entwined, admitting without words what neither had dared say aloud, that their hearts now belonged wholly to each other. Trouble came on the 28th night. Chiara had never imagined how swiftly joy could turn to dread. They were in the villa's private gym, of all places. Chiara had playfully insisted Dante teach her a few self-defense moves, and he was indulging her with a good-natured smirk. He had just pinned her, perhaps a bit too easily, to the mat, both of them laughing and breathless, when a frantic pounding sounded on the door. "Capo, mi dispiace," came the muffled voice of Marco, Dante's right-hand man. "I need to show you something." "It's urgent." Dante's brow creased. He released Chiara and strode to the door, pulling it open. Marco hurried in, holding a tablet with a news live stream already playing. Chiara got to her feet, her stomach tightening at the look on Marco's face. "What is it?" Dante demanded. Wordlessly, Marco held out the tablet. Dante's eyes narrowed as he watched the screen, and then his expression went tight with anger. Chiara stepped forward, anxiety gnawing at her. On the tablet, a newscaster was speaking over helicopter footage of a fiery car wreck on a highway. Police cars flashed in the night. The banner crawling across the bottom of the screen read, "Car explosion kills local businessman Gianni Lombardi." "Foul play suspected." Chiara's heart stopped. "No," she whispered, snatching the tablet from Dante's hand. She stared in horror at the broadcast. A car, her father's familiar blue sedan, lay crumpled and smoking. The vehicle, registered to restaurant owner Gianni Lombardi, exploded just outside Rome earlier this evening, the reporter was saying. Authorities have not officially confirmed the identity of the victim found inside, but sources say Lombardi is presumed deceased. Police are investigating, and ties to organized crime are being considered. A strangled cry tore from Chiara's throat. Her knees buckled. "Papa! Papa!" Everything around her blurred. In an instant, Dante was there, catching her as she collapsed. He eased her to the floor, supporting her shaking form against him. "Chiara, listen to me," Dante said urgently, his face inches from hers. "I swear I did not order this. I gave my word and I kept it. I would never—" Chiara was hardly processing his words. Grief crashed over her in a tidal wave, stealing her breath. Her father was dead, killed in an explosion likely meant as a message, or a punishment, and suddenly it dawned on her, meant for Dante. She was Dante's weakness, and his enemies must have noticed. Hot tears streamed down her face. Why? She managed to choke out. Marco cleared his throat, jaw clenched. "It was a bomb on the car's ignition, Capo. We have intel that it was planted by men loyal to Luciano Vitali, likely in retaliation for the port deal last month. They couldn't reach you, so—" His pained gaze shifted to Chiara. "So they went after someone close to you." Dante's arms tightened around Chiara, a muscle ticking in his jaw. His eyes blazed with fury and guilt. "Luciano," he spat. "Bastardo." He gently cradled Chiara's face, wiping a tear with his thumb. "Chiara, I am so terribly sorry. This is my fault." his voice caught raw with emotion. "I never wanted you hurt. I thought I could keep you out of harm's way." Chiara clung to him, sobbing into his chest now. Her father was gone. Nothing could change that. But through the haze of grief, one thing burned clear. Luciano Vitale had done this. He had murdered an innocent man, her father, to get to Dante. Rage, white-hot and vengeful, kindled alongside Chiara's sorrow. She pulled back, meeting Dante's tortured gaze with her own tear-streaked, determined one. "Make him pay," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. "Dante, promise me. He has to pay for this." Dante's gray eyes turned steely. He brushed a kiss on Chiara's forehead as if swearing an oath. "He will, amore mio. I'll make sure of it." That very night, Dante assembled a small army of his best men. Chiara refused to be left behind. She needed to see the man responsible for her father's death brought to justice, even if mafia justice was dealt at the barrel of a gun. Dante relented under the condition that she stay out of the line of fire. Under a moonless sky, Dante and his men descended on Luciano's countryside estate. A brief but fierce firefight erupted as they overpowered Luciano's guards and stormed the mansion. In the end, Luciano Vitale, a squat, graying man with snake-like eyes, was dragged, bleeding and cursing, into the lantern-lit courtyard where Chiara stood under guard. Dante prowled up to their prisoner, fury emanating from him in almost palpable waves. Luciano wiped blood from his split lip and gave Dante a defiant sneer. "So," he spat, eyeing Chiara, "it's true. The girl is your weakness. I should have aimed for her from the start." Dante's fist collided with Luciano's jaw, silencing the taunt and sending the man reeling. Chiara watched with fists clenched and heart pounding. She had never seen Dante lose control like that. He hauled Luciano up by the collar, pressing the muzzle of a pistol to the man's forehead. "You murdered an innocent old man," Dante snarled, voice deadly quiet. "Did you think I'd let that go?" Luciano grinned through bloody teeth. "This is the cost of having something to lose, Romano." "You go soft." He cast a hateful glance Chiara's way. "I only regret I missed." Dante's jaw flexed. Without another word, with a thunderous crack, Dante pulled the trigger, ending Luciano's life. Chiara flinched, and Luciano fell, a red hole between his eyes. It was over. Dante exhaled and immediately turned to Chiara, pulling her into his chest and shielding her face from the gruesome sight. She clung to him, trembling with relief and anguish as the echo of the gunshot faded. Around them, Dante's men quietly began to withdraw and secure the area, giving their boss and his woman a moment. Dante stroked Chiara's hair, his own breaths ragged as he tried to steady both of them. "It's done, amore," he whispered. "He won't ever hurt anyone again." Chiara nodded against his shoulder, her tears soaking into his shirt. She looked up to see Dante wince, finally noticing a bloody graze along his thigh. "You're hurt," she said, voice thick. He shook his head. "Just a scratch. I'm fine." His eyes softened with concern for her. "Are you all right?" Physically, Chiara was unharmed, but the wound in her heart was raw and deep. "My father," a sob hitched in her throat. "I know." Dante pressed his forehead to hers. For the first time, Chiara saw tears glinting in his eyes as well. "I'm so sorry, Chiara. Your papa was an honorable man. He didn't deserve this." They held each other amid the smoke and shadows of the courtyard, two souls clinging together in shared sorrow. Dante's arms, the same arms that had once held her captive, now held her upright, offering what comfort he could. In a broken voice, he vowed, "I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you, if you'll let me. I won't lose you too, ti prometto, I promise you." Through her tears, Chiara whispered into his chest, "We've lost enough. We still have each other." Dante's embrace tightened. In that moment of tragedy and blood, their bond was irrevocably sealed. Love, unexpected and profound, had grown from darkness, and it would guide them out of it. A warm summer breeze ruffles the curtains as Chiara stands on the terrace of their Tuscan villa, cradling their sleepy toddler daughter on her hip. She smiles at the sight of Dante strolling up the gravel path between olive trees, a bouquet of wildflowers in one hand, and their 3-year-old son perched on his shoulders, little arms spread like wings as he makes pretend airplane noises. Dante laughs, a sound so genuine and carefree that it still amazes her. In the years since the violent night that changed their lives, Dante gradually stepped away from his life of crime. With Chiara's support, he handed over his underworld empire to trusted allies and legitimized his businesses, determined to build a safe, honest future for their family. Chiara sold her father's old trattoria and opened a charitable foundation in Gianni's memory, turning pain into hope for others, something her father would have loved. Together, they forged a new path far from the shadows of the past. Dante reaches the terrace, slightly breathless from playing chase with their son, who is squealing in delight. He sets the giggling boy down and greets Chiara with a soft kiss, tucking a wildflower behind her ear. "For you, amore," he says warmly. Chiara beams and accepts the bouquet. He still brings her wildflowers just because, a simple gesture that means everything. They settle side by side on a wooden swing bench overlooking fields of golden sunflowers. At their feet, the children toddle after a bright ladybug, their laughter ringing out like music. Chiara leans her head on Dante's shoulder as the sun sinks low, bathing the world in a gentle orange glow. "Do you ever miss it?" she asks quietly. "The thrill, the power, your old life." Dante is silent for a moment, watching their son carefully let the ladybug crawl onto his finger. "Perhaps the adrenaline now and then," he admits, "but nothing could compare to this." He looks at her and their children with a contentment that lights his gray eyes. "This is real power, a family, love. You gave me that, Chiara." She lifts his hand and presses a kiss to his scarred knuckles, faint reminders of the battles they fought to get here. "I'm proud of you," she whispers. "Proud of the man you've become." Dante turns to face her, raising a hand to caress her cheek. In his eyes, she sees the man who once terrified her and the man who now loves her beyond measure. They are one and the same, and he is hers. "I became that man because you believed in me," he replies softly. "You were my light in the darkness, my only weakness, and my greatest strength." Before Chiara can respond, the children abandon the ladybug and clamber onto their laps, demanding attention. Dante chuckles, enveloping both little ones in a bear hug and tickling them until they shriek with giggles. Chiara throws her head back laughing, her heart so full she thinks it might burst. As dusk deepens tonight, the first stars prick through the violet sky above. The kids grow drowsy, curling up in their parents' arms. Chiara meets Dante's gaze over their daughter's dark curls and son's sleepy head. They share a smile heavy with gratitude and memories. Once a desperate bargain had bound them. Now nothing binds them but love. Dante drops a tender kiss on Chiara's forehead. "Grazie, amore mio," he whispers. "Thank you for finding me in the dark." Chiara snuggles closer, resting her head against his chest. "Always," she murmurs, eyes shining as she looks up at him. In that single word is every promise of the life they've built. A life where love triumphed over power. Under the blanket of a quiet Tuscan night, the family remains on the swing, wrapped in each other's arms. The past and its shadows have finally faded. What remains is the gentle glow of a love hard won, a light that will guide them, always, out of the darkness and into a brighter tomorrow.